Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome back to another segment of the Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp series. We are so excited to have this second series, but this particular segment is going to be very transformational for those of you who are with us. And I'm so excited, and I just want to welcome each of you. I know that COVID-19 has affected communities across the globe. And these 12 boot camps with Comerica, they're for the business leader, they're for the nonprofit founder, and they're designed to help the leaders remain proactive in increasing your knowledge and developing your skills as we navigate this post-COVID world together. I am your host, Margot Blair, leadership development consultant and founder of Discover Her Worldwide. Discover Her is a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. Our vision at Discover Her is designed to bridge generational gaps between diverse groups of women. Pre-Rona, we would do this through in-person professional and personal development experiences such as conferences, trainings, as well as seminars. As we navigate this post-COVID world at Discover Her, we are cultivating virtual experiences such as these to teach the fundamentals that may have been missed, to equip leaders with actionable steps you can apply to your business and life immediately, and to grow our professional networks. I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome and thank the person behind the yes of bringing this vision to life. Summer Fawcett of Comerica Bank, who is settling into her seat as a National African American Business Development Manager. Summer, it's so great to see you and have you part of this vision.
Thank you, Margot. Thank you. I've been with you for a little bit, so it's just exciting to see how this program blossoms and kind of goes through. Before we were just looking at doing everything within Phoenix in Arizona, but now we have the opportunity to kind of cross state lines, which is really nice. But running a business, understanding business, and the literacy of business is something that isn't always taught. So that is why we have developed the Business Sense Bootcamp. It's for entrepreneurs who are wanting to get started, or those who've been in the business for a very long time. So it's just knowledge based that kind of helps the foundation of the business and allows us to kind of pick what we need for our own businesses and grow from that, which is fantastic because you don't have to do, a whole 6-month course just to get some of the basics if you just need some quick inputs and ideas of where to go or how to scale. So I'm really excited for this program. Again, I absolutely thank you for allowing us to partner with you and to do this with your organization. It's certainly not going to be the last one. So we love carrying this with you. And I'm just here in the background. If there's any questions, I'd love to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It means so much. And so for all of you who are joining, we definitely want to go over some housekeeping just so you can really be aware of what this conversation looks like and how you can be an active participant in this discussion. What does that actually look like? When you hear something that resonates with you, let us know in the comments below. If you would like one of us to provide additional clarity or an example, simply ask us and we will make sure to do so. Or if at the end, we're going to have the opportunity to do a final call for any questions. So be sure to drop them into the comments and my team and I will do our best to get your questions answered. We say this every segment. Be sure you have your notepad and pen. I know for those of you who aren't new to me, you know how it goes. So definitely if you are new though, make sure you have that notepad and pen because there will be some quotables and major takeaways that you receive. And so be sure to give credit where it's due. When you do receive a quotable, tag us and use the hashtag Comerica Business Sense Bootcamp series. I know it's long, but it allows us to be unique and find what stood out. It allows us to see what your major takeaways were. And then we always encourage you to share, share, share. We know sharing is caring, but if there is a fellow business leader, nonprofit founder, or even a corporate professional you know who should be part of this conversation on owning your financial narrative, invite them into the room right now. If you happen to be catching the replay, tag them and bring them here, or slide into their DMs and send them this direct link, because we know that this is a conversation that needs to be had, not just because we're post pandemic, but because this is a conversation that has been overlooked, and it is time to break these generational cycles. Finally, we'd like to thank each of you for joining us, because you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us to learn, to grow, and to prepare to make a greater impact in the lives of those you're called to lead. So if you're ready, let's dive in. Today's discussion is on the topic of owning your financial narrative, and we are joined by certified financial planner, Shahara Wooten. Thank you so much for joining us. Shahar is a author, speaker, financial planner, and the founder of Your Story Financial, which is a virtual fiduciary boutique firm committed to helping women and STEM professionals. She has over 16 years experience in the financial services industry. She's not new to this, everyone. She has a background in electrical and computer engineering, and decided to make a career change where she became a financial advisor in order to help individuals and families improve their financial positions in a more significant way. Shahara, welcome. It is so great to have you with us today. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm doing fantastic, Margot. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I'm I'm so grateful. I know, I mean, we've been connected for several years, and we've always connected, and we give a big hug when we see each other. And not just because of COVID, but we can't do that anymore because you've relocated to Dallas. So I want to just let's I'd love for us to just dive straight into this conversation, and really share, why is this discussion of owning your financial narrative important to have?
I think it's important because really every facet of our life has something to do with our finances. It's so strange that, we go through school, we get our degrees, we learn all these subject matters that, that sometimes we don't even use when we actually start working and living life. But the one subject matter that we should be learning is personal finance. And a lot of us are left to really just learn that on our own. And so that's why I think it's important for us to have these conversations because, a lot of folks, and not everybody, but a lot of folks just didn't talk about it at home. You didn't talk about it in school. And then you were just kind of left like, oh, I have a great job or I have a business, generating revenue, whatever it is, I'm bringing in income. And what do I do with this money? So this is why it's so important to have these conversations and really begin to learn, like, how do you manage money? What do I do with my money? How do I pursue the goals that I have, and get through it with some confidence?
I think you just hit it on the head, and you kind of already opened up the doors, which kind of gives way to that next question. You mentioned a lot of the times we don't necessarily have these conversations at home. And that is exactly why I would say this particular conversation of owning your financial narrative is monumentally important. And I have to raise my hand as well. I wasn't raised sitting around a table having an open discussion on finances and wealth and investments and good debt versus bad debt. And so I just want to throw that question right back to you. And it's a two-part question, and I can repeat this, but I really think it's important that we address this at the beginning of this conversation. For those of us who didn't have this conversation sitting around a table, what do we do? How do we even get started to understand this conversation that we're having?
Yes, that's a fantastic question. I think the first question that I usually like to ask is think about your first money memory. When you think about how you deal with money, what's your first memory? I know for me, my first memory was my dad gave us $20 to go Christmas shopping. And I have two sisters, my mom and my dad. And somehow I was just learning math. So somehow I was able to get everybody a gift from Woolworth and still have some money left over. And so that was my first money memory, and running back to my father, like, hey, I got everybody a gift and I still had money left for myself. What memory do you have? And whatever that first money memory is, that first money story is, own that, dissect it, start to, see like, okay, well, how do I handle money now based on that experience or those thoughts? And I think that really helps people to get control. And then from there, you start to see, what are my values? And I think knowing your values, if you like security, um, independence, you like to be able to give to family, or you like to give and you're charitably inclined, you like to grow your money, whatever those values are, start to see, how do I connect with that, and am I really being true to those values? So if I have a value of, I like security, I like independence, do I make sure that I have an emergency fund so that I don't have to go out there and ask people for money? Or I don't like to have debt, so do I have a situation in place where I'm going to be able to manage appropriately should the unexpected occur? So those are some of the things to really start to consider as you're opening up this Pandora's box about money.
Again, so many really great points. And so from that same from the same initial question, as parents, how do we start these conversations to break cycles of generational poverty?
Yeah, no, that's really good. So I know for me, for those who are parents, I just think back to my relationship with my parents, and just watching how I would get money for certain things that I did. And not everybody can say that, but certain, if I made good grades, I got money, and then they would share with me, okay, this is, what are you going to do with that money?
Mm,
See about how you're inclined to that. But one of the biggest things, and I have a book too, and I've been seeing some trends with the people that I've been interviewing, and what they've done with their children is they've taken them to the bank, or they create bank accounts for them, and they're already understanding, oh wait, this is money that I have, and they're starting to see, oh, okay, that means that I'm going to have to figure out like how to budget this, because I'm not spending my mom or my dad's money now that I have my own money. So some of the kids will realize that they're very, they love to spend money, and some are like, will hoard it, and be afraid to spend. I've talked to people who are just, they were just like, I save all the time, and I'm just afraid to spend anything, whether it's for a gift or for myself. So I think with parents, I think it's important to, just give them a few bucks here and there, or they can earn that money around the house, and then begin to show them like the economic systems. And I know it's much different now. A lot of people aren't going into the bank, but even if you can show them like, here's what a bank account looks like, just to get acclimated to all this stuff. And then also when they go to the store, they're now seeing, okay, if you get $1, this is what you spend money on. I had someone I spoke with yesterday, and he said growing up, he wasn't allowed to go to the store. His parents told him, you can't come to the store because you don't have any money. So he ended up getting money. I forget how he was able to earn his keep, but over time, he said he started to save money. And when he asked his parents, "Can I go to the store with you?" They said, you can't because you don't have any money. And he was like, oh, wait, hold on. So he went to his room, pulled out a bag of coins and was like, wait, I have money, so I can go to the store with you. So it's interesting how kids will take on these, these statements. And I just thought that was really cool that the parents said, we're not going to take you until you have money, and how that young person interpreted that. And he said, I'm going to get me some money here. So
I think that's a really good place to understand this, right? So that question was, how do we as parents begin to have this conversation, right? So one thing that we're not doing is saying bad parents for not teaching us this, right? We're not doing that. The
exactly.
conversation has shifted to no longer be the victim of our circumstances, our upbringing, right? No longer being defined by what didn't happen or what should have happened, or how things should, the way things should have gone. It's, you now have to rewrite the narrative and own this narrative, which is, that's your message, that's your platform of your book, and really what you're teaching individuals, both professionally and, we could just say professional homemakers. And so I have to thank you for the work that you're doing, because if we don't have people like you, like Summer, like Stacy, there's people who are like me, who I'm like, I need to make money, but I don't really understand it. So help me out, right? And again, it comes from a place of, I didn't have these conversations. I can't be mad at my mom because the conversation didn't happen for her. So what do I do now, being a wife and a mom of three? I need my kids prepared, and I need them smarter than me. And I'm pretty smart, but that's me just tooting my own horn, right? So again, I just thank you for sharing that story and giving us real, tangible examples for what we can do. And there's always more to do and more to learn,
Yeah,
correct?
definitely. There always is. I remember someone telling me that her mom used to dress her up, and she would go to the bank dressed up. And so that was a big memory. So there's so many things that parents can do just to be creative with it. And again, not feeling shame or anything like that. We're just changing the narrative, creating a new story. So
Let's talk a little bit about this, and then I want to get deeper into your story and how you got to where you are. Um, let's talk about breaking away from your struggle story. I know that's kind of general, but and you can take it if you need me to ask some more specific questions. I will definitely do so. But let's talk about that, breaking away from your struggle story. I think that's going to be really important, for the leaders who are listening today.
definitely. Yeah. And, I'm a big proponent of, what we speak can come to pass. So, when we talk and we talk about, oh, I can't afford it. I read a book long time ago, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he talked about, really when you say I can't afford it, it just kind of stops everything, all
That's all.
creativity,
Yep.
and you don't do anything about it. So the question is, how can I afford it? How can I do this? How can I make these things happen? What are the creative resources that have been given to me by God to be able to do this? And I know for me, when I started to hear, change that language, think about that language, like what you're speaking, and how your connection to money and how you talk about it. When I was like in my 20s, used to live in Philadelphia, and I went to a church that started to really teach about personal finance, and that's part of where I got that interest. And one of the persons said, instead of saying I can't afford it, say, my money is circulating. Money is always in motion. It's always circulating. It's always moving. It just may not have gotten to you yet. It may just be out there to some other folks. So I loved that analogy of that my money is circulating, because it is circulating. It is my money. It just may be at a credit card company, or it may be in my dining out, or whatever that is that you're doing. But how can you get it to circulate back to you? And those are the questions that, that I think people need to ask themselves as they're trying to break away from that struggle story, because we don't have to own a struggle story. Just because it happened to us or we've been a part of it in the past, we don't have to own that. We can change that. Some of that too is creating some solid financial goals. I'm a big proponent of SMART goals. So I call them SMARTY goals. And so you may have heard of this in business at your job, but the acronym stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound. And then I call them SMARTY. The why is your why behind it, because I think that's what is the fuel that drives you to keep going. If you know why do I have this goal, and then being very specific about the dollar amount that you have.
Yeah.
Just start to, like, oh, I want an emergency fund. So how much is it going to be to have an emergency fund of 6 months? Um, and then how much are you going to have to save every month or every week to make that happen? And then you'll start to, because you value being secure, you value whatever that is that your values are, independent, then you're going to keep focused on that goal, even when challenges come.
Again, you're opening up some doors, and I'm really, really excited. I think I want to ask this one question now, just to kind of get it out of the way. We're seeing a lot of, or not just we're seeing it now, but we've seen it where people talk about pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and becoming self-made, millionaire, billionaire, what have you. I personally think that's a myth on
Yeah.
both statements. I'd love for your insight on that. And are can people really do this alone? Build wealth alone?
Alone. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I believe it's a myth. And so it's funny, the questions, they just align right now with my book. So I'll be publishing in summer, in August 2021. But that was some of the reason why I wrote it, because we have this myth that people have pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps. But people are gaining wealth, especially generational wealth, because they were able to help someone else before them. The one thing that really drove me to even writing the book was the fact that there is a racial wealth gap.
Mhm.
And it has been predicted that by 2053 Black wealth will go to zero. And I just find that to be an astounding number. It's just hard for me to even believe that could be the case. But a lot of that, that disparity came because a lot of people got help. A lot of the white community, there's these homestead acts. If we go back through the history, there's been help. There's been an opportunity to receive funding, receive housing, receive land, over time. And so that's where some of that gap is starting to see. So you can see that community, that pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, it's really a myth. So what we do in the meantime is we need to start to reach out, get resources. I know there's plenty of financial planners out there like myself, that we're here to educate, hold people accountable, and really help them understand how to build wealth for themselves. So obviously you can work with a financial planner. There's also the ability to work with your family. That's community as well. There's power in community. Helping everybody in your family as much as you can, and obviously there is this phrase, it's called the Black tax, where a lot of you make it as a Black American, and you're pretty much expected to help all your other family members. So it can be a burden as well, right? So you can feel burdened to do that. So innately, we just, most Black Americans are experiencing that, community as well, just because it just has to happen, because people are expecting you to help them with whatever it is that they're needing. But we can't do this in a vacuum. Reading books, having book clubs, and talking about money, creating conversations around it is another way to begin to build that community. And I'm a big proponent of even reading and watching people who are doing a lot of great things despite any type of challenges. And those are some of the things I do highlight in my book as well, just with a few people that I've met and interviewed, and they're just so inspiring. So there's a lot of people right around us that we can tap into and begin to reach out to. But it does take us reaching out as well. So we have to take on that effort, that first step, because sometimes, people are not always, they're like, we've got our community. But if you come and ask me, I will be willing to help you. So there's a lot of folks out there willing to help.
Um, I'm gonna throw the next question to Stacy, but before I do, I need you to repeat what you just said because we kind of ran past it. By 2025, what is expected to happen?
Yeah, so it's actually 2053.
2050.
Fortunately, it's not that close, but still. So the black wealth is expected to go to zero by 2053. It's expected to go to zero. It's astounding. In 2016, the net worth of Black families was around 17,000, and white families, it was 171,000. So that means that it's about a 10 times difference between the two communities. And those numbers have changed, they've been updated, but it hasn't been updated for the better. So I just don't have those memorized. But, the number that I've known for a while is the 2016 number too. So we have work to do. We have work to do.
Absolutely, we do. Stacy, I'd love to loop you in this part of the conversation. As we're talking about the finances, as we're talking about this wealth gap, what does this mean for what does this mean for you as a banker, and how can you support your clients and customers?
I think the biggest thing is educating. Just educate us as minorities. There's not enough education out there, and there's a lot of people that are just chasing the dollar opposed to what do they need to get there. It's just they see a dollar amount and they just want it. And the job changing, it's just, I actually just had this conversation with someone about the youth. They see a dollar amount and they just want to run for the dollar. They don't want to work their way up. And you have to work your way up. And that's one thing, the numbers that she just shared, it's scary because, I came from a family where my father, he's always worked and worked and worked, and he's worked his way up, where even though now he's retired, they're still calling him to come back to work. So I think with us, it's just educating. We need to get into the schools. We need to educate our community, and we just need to educate people and let them know that it's not all about making that fast dollar. It's about working your way up, because if your children see you working that hard, they're going to want to work that hard, and you're going to be able to provide for your children as well.
And I find it interesting because we see it from two sides. We see it from the entrepreneurial side, where it's the hustle, it's the grind. And one of the things that I teach the entrepreneurs that I work with is getting out of this space of having to hustle, having to grind, and understanding what it looks like to go from entrepreneur to CEO, and really learning what that role looks like. And again, what we're talking about today, owning your financial narrative, is part of that equation. One of the main lessons or modules that I focus on is knowing the story behind your numbers. And so I want to loop this back in, because we are talking about for personal finances. We're also talking about entrepreneurship. We're talking about bridging this wealth gap that we've seen existing for generations. And so I just want to share why we're talking and having this conversation is that it is more important for us to see the end, the long game, the end game, and then reverse engineer that process, right? So that, and this is, we got to go here. And so I pray that I don't make this uncomfortable for somebody, but so that we are not the ones standing on the corner with a sign trying to raise funds for our own funerals. I said I'm going to go there, okay? when we're talking about financial wealth, it's not as simple as go and get yourself an insurance plan for you and your kids. It's not just make sure you're saving from a rainy day, because if you're having that perspective, the rainy day is going to keep on coming. Shahar just mentioned that, as understanding how we have to change our vocabulary so that we can begin to change our mindset. And then once our mindset begins to change, the habits will begin to follow. Right. And so I want us to ask ourselves, amen, no car washes. I just saw that comment over on social media. Again, yes. Right. And so we're having this conversation of this ripple effects. You got to think different. Once you think different, then you can believe different, and then your habits will follow. And so I want to throw this question back. We can let that marinate for a little bit, but I want to ask this question too. And Stacey, you were on last segment, our first series, when I asked this question, but I think this is super important. So I'd love to hear from both of you. What does it look like to have a healthy relationship with money? Either one of you can start, but what does it look like to have a healthy relationship with money?
What comes to mind with me is when you get paid and you forget that it was payday. So I had a conversation with my best friend, and we both told each other, I said, I got paid. Oh, I forgot. It's payday. And when you're not relying on that payday every 2 weeks, that is a healthy relationship. When your bills are coming out and you don't have to worry about it, and you're not checking your account every day to see if something's posted or to see if you're overdrawn, that is a healthy relationship. So I look at it, if all your bills are paid and payday comes and you forget, that's a healthy relationship with money, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yes, I mean, you can just have your money coming in and you don't even think about it, and everything's taken care of. I love that. And I also wanted to bring up net worth because we hadn't talked about that yet. But to me, another aspect of a healthy relationship with money is that you're actually measuring your wealth. You're always, you're looking at what are my assets? And then if you have liabilities, your liabilities are lower than your assets. So assets minus liabilities is your net worth. The other aspect of a healthy relationship with money, wherever you are, say you are at a place where you did your assets minus your liabilities and it's negative, but you know that because of the goals you're setting and you are working on that debt, getting out of debt, and now you're at maybe your net worth is at $100 because last year it was at negative 2,000. A healthy relationship with money is that you're now at $100 net worth and you are working towards your 500,000, your $1 million. And so to me, a healthy relationship with money is not walking in shame to the point where you're not doing anything, but it's actually taking action every day so that you can begin to get to the place that you see yourself at, whether, whatever your definition of financial freedom is. And that to me is a healthy relationship with money.
That is so good. Both points were super, super solid. And I'm just seeing some of the comments, and people are really resonating with what you're sharing. And I know for several of the people that I talk to, we don't really go the financial conversation, but we're talking about the number side of things. And I try and stay in my own lane, and I refer people very well. But one of the things that I've realized kind of learning more about your bio, Shahar, is really understanding how you first, like when you first got started in the industry, you learned that there was a limit to who you could help. The people who you couldn't support them if they didn't already have a ton of assets. If they were younger and they didn't have an inheritance, a lot of them would get passed over for a very well-meaning financial advisor. Can you talk more about this and what does this mean? Like, what does this even mean for anybody?
Yeah, so basically what I learned when I started in the industry, going from being an engineer, and then to the point where I was just like, okay, how do I become wealthy? How do I learn how this all works? And looking back on it, I understand why it was such a challenge in the beginning. And the way that the industry is set up is they really have designed it so that a lot of financial advisors end up getting paid based on the amount of assets they manage. So if you're coming to a financial advisor, depending on, you know, where they're at in the business, and you have zero assets and you're like, hey, I want to get started. How do I get started? Depending on their financial model, they're not going to be as motivated, because someone, you know, that they manage $500,000 for versus someone who's just starting at $50 a month or 100 or 300, whatever, per month is obviously not going to pay them as much. So, and then a lot of times behind the scenes, there's these metrics that they have to follow. So it's already set up where it's hard to get that kind of help. So what I did after my eyes were open, because I was just like, wow, okay, I got into this. I want to help people. I remember being 25, reaching out to a financial advisor, told them at 25, at 30, I want to retire. I knew 5 years was lofty, but 30 seemed old at that time. 30 is not old. It's not old at all. I'm way over 30 now. But it's not old. But I wanted him to help me, right? And he did not help me. And I think it's also because he was having to start at zero with me. So what was the motivation? So over time, my eyes became opened, and after working with individuals from 2009 to 2016, I just was like, wow, you know what? I would like to work with people who they can pay me in a different way. So I became fee only. I learned about becoming fee only. Look out for fee only financial planners out there. They're able to be a fiduciary and provide unbiased financial advice. So instead of it's almost like going to an attorney, going to a CPA. You pay them a fee, they help you, and they provide you advice. So they're not going to get a certain commission based on how much you give them, or how much you invest with them. So that really resonated with me. And so now I'm able to work with people regardless of if they have assets or not. They're just like, hey, can you give me some advice on how to do this or that? Or should I buy a home? Should I rent? Should I, how much should I put in my 401k? Should I buy life insurance? Or, should I have disability insurance? So I'm able to provide a overall perspective for them based on their situation. And they would, then pay me for that, because and then build the assets later, so it's not like, hey, why don't you go ahead, work it out on your own, come back to me when you have 200, 300,000. It wasn't resonating with me. And that's what I do now. I'm able to help people who are willing to just get that unbiased advice.
So what I hear you saying is that you become people's fairy financial mother. Is that kind of what I hear?
I love that.
I'm like, brand it, trademark it, it's yours. Cause I'm like, that's kind of what I heard you say. But that was actually going to be one of the questions that I asked is, what does it mean to be a fee only certified financial planner, right? We can Google these things. Google is great. And we're like, all right, I need someone to help me with my money. And these lists of people will come up on who you can talk to, but you really don't know outside of that Google or textbook definition what they are and how they can actually serve you. And I want to take some time here for people to really understand why it's important to speak to you, Shahara, as a certified financial planner, versus when it's important to come to speak to you, Stacy, as their banker. And so I want to, have you first share, Shahara, and go. Why? When do we come to you? Who should come to you, and why? And then Stacy, I'm going to throw that same question to you. I'll just let you jump in right after she speaks, and say when they should come to you, who, and why.
Yeah. So great question. So for me, I like to help people who may be unsure. You're unsure about your money. You might be saving a bunch of money, but you don't know where to put it. And you know that this should not all be in an emergency fund. or you're just not really sure where, you don't know if you should invest, or you don't know, should I be putting this towards protecting my family in the future? Should I be putting this towards retirement? I want to take a trip in 10 years, like an epic trip. How do I do that? How do I make that happen? That's when you come to a financial planner like myself. I help people do that. I help you go from being unsure, about your money, to getting confidence, so that you can start to really define what financial freedom, means for you and your family. So there's so many questions. When talking with my colleagues, we have about 60 or so life transitions. So anytime there's a transition, you get married, you get a new job, you want to move across country, you want to buy a house, you want to downsize, you want to, you're getting divorced, you're going to have a child, you're going to adopt. I mean, there's so many, parents moving in the house. I mean, there are so many situations that occur that will require you to make a money decision. And that's where a financial planner like myself can come in to help you really to prioritize how to work through those decisions.
Thank you. Go ahead, Stacey.
For me, it's for us. I don't want to say we're just basic, but we are the we get you there. So this is where you come when you want to start when you're just starting your checking account, when you're wanting to save that $50 a month. And let's say you do go to a financial planner and they can't because they have certain dollar amounts or certain requirements. So therefore you come to us, we can help you get to where you need to go. So we have CD products, savings products that can help you get those dollar amounts. But at the same time, we also want to know what your financial goals are. We do ask that when people do sit down to open a checking account. We'll ask, what are your financial goals? We'll ask them if they're coming in with large dollar amounts. We're asking if this is leave on money or live on money, because that's going to tell us if it's live on money or leave on money, who do we need to refer that to? So if it's leave on money, we need to refer that to a financial advisor. If it's live on money, we still have to refer that, but there's different products we can put them in to help them gain their money, gain more revenue for their money. So for us, like I said, we're basic, but we get you where you need to go. So if you're coming in with a large dollar check, we can help you with that and we can point you in the proper direction. So, or if it's just, you want just your basic checking account and it's just your everyday purchases, we can help you with that. Or if you want to just save $50 a month, we can help you with that. And we can also start accounts for children.
This is so rich. This is so rich. And I just want to ask, just to break it down fundamentally, right? You ladies both shared some really key pieces of information to help us get clear. Who do we come to first? Shahara, Stacey, who do we come to first?
I've seen it where most of the time they come to the bank first. They always come to the bank first because they don't know about financial planning. They don't know about financial advisors. And it's up for us to get that to the right person. And that is where our training comes in. Even if you come to a bank, to a teller, and they come in and you come in and deposit a large $100,000 check. We have our tellers trained, and this is probably every bank, that it's not going to go into that checking account. So they're going to come and get the branch manager. They're going to come and get a banker. They're going to refer that over to a financial advisor, because that's not the proper place for it to go. And they know the proper questions to ask. We always say that our tellers are the most important because they see all the transactions that are going on and they have the relationships with their customers. So most of the time they always come to us unless there is a family member or unless they've spoken to someone and they know to go to a financial planner or a financial advisor.
So, what I hear is this is really what it comes down to, is a conversation of new money versus old money. Again, like, let's,
Correct.
and this is why I love this conversation. If you didn't know, you now know. When you come to a conversation with Margot Blair, it's going to be real and raw. We're going to talk about what we need to talk about, but we're also going to get deeper when we need to. And this is important to know because, again, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, unfortunately for many of us, these were not conversations that we had around the dinner table.
Right.
We cannot continue this cycle. And we're seeing more of people becoming financially independent, financially free, right? We see a lot of people breaking away from the traditionalism, and to be specific in what we're talking about there is breaking free from just working just one 9-to-5 jobs. We're talking about multiple sources of revenue, multiple streams of income as well. And yes, streams and revenue, streams and well, what am I trying to say? The streams and sources, there we go. The streams and sources are different. If we need to go there, we can. But again, it's really important for us to identify this conversation about old money and new money. There's things that old money, they don't have questions about. There's things that new money, we don't know, they don't know what to do, where to go, and how to get there. And I will be the first to say, I'm new money and I didn't know what to do and I had to ask these questions. And so don't be intimidated. Don't feel that guilt or shame because you weren't set up for success. Be willing to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm new to this and I don't know what to do. Who can help me? This is a quote by the late Maya Angelou. It should be scripture, but it's not. Ask for what you want and be prepared to get it. That's really what it comes down to. If you need the help around finances, if you really are looking to build wealth for yourself, for your family, to leave a legacy, you need to know where to start. You need to know where to go. You can't just first set this goal of wanting to achieve multi-million dollars and not know how to, number one, reverse engineer that process. And then number two, know how to take step one. You have to connect with the people who can teach you what you need to know. You can get a whole bunch of books, but they're going to only give you they're going to only take you so far. You have to sit with the individuals. I don't know where they are right now. Right now, they're above and below me, but they may be right next to me. You have to connect with the right people. And here's the kicker. These people right here are women of integrity. The people that you connect with, prayerfully, they are too. But if they can't assist, what they're going to do is introduce you to people they trust to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
We can't continue to operate in a silo. We have to begin to invest into ourselves. And that starts with the knowledge. It starts with the resources. You do have to invest into yourself. And yes, it's going to be financially in many cases, but it's going to be so worth it in the long haul for you to learn what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is so good. Oh, I love these conversations. This is so good.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. I just want to say something too.
Please.
A lot of times people think a financial planner or advisor, that's, I've got to have a bunch of money. And that's the whole point of why I, decided to become fee only, because I want people to realize that, it is accessible. You don't have to have a bunch of money first and then work with someone. It's kind of like, yeah, let me get my life right, and then I'll go to church, and then I'll get saved. Like, it just doesn't work. You don't have to do that. So we want to dispel that myth too. So, and there are advisors like myself who will work with people who, don't have a certain amount of assets. I don't have a minimum, that type of thing. So, so that's really important.
This is so good. And again, I love that we're having these conversations. I love that we're here from two different perspectives, on some of the same topics, because again, it's super important. I mean, we would really be grateful if you just with you, Stacey, or just with you, Shahara, but again, we're able to blend this conversation and really understand why this conversation on owning your financial narrative is important, and really how we can play a more significant role in the process. So I'm really grateful that both of you are here having this conversation with us today. I think this is a really great segue. You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but let's talk a little bit about wealth and how to build it. Sound good? I'll just ask this question, how do we set financial goals? And here's the kicker, how do we accomplish them?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so setting financial goals, I'll go back. I always work with my framework, the Smarty goals. So really, starting with being very specific about your goals. And what I help people do is, help them figure out what that number is. If you're trying to reach a goal to retire, by 65, or maybe it's 50, maybe it was yesterday, who knows? But you're trying to reach this goal. We need to figure out what that number is and start to look at the vehicles that'll help you get there. You want to get your money working harder for you. A lot of people, especially in the Black community, they know about savings accounts. They know about things that, are low interest rates, but we need to start learning about investing and getting our money to work harder for us, and not being so afraid. It is one of those things where as you learn more and you become more comfortable with it, you will not be as afraid, because now you understand there's just certain tactics you have to use. You have to make sure you're diversified and, properly allocated. I'll start, throwing out some lingo, but there is a language to money. There's a language to money, and it's really important for us to become more acclimated to that language as well, and not be so afraid of it. I've been taking French for about the last 600 days or so, because Duolingo counts my days. But the one thing I've learned is that, as you learn, as I'm learning French, I'm hearing it more, I'm becoming more comfortable with it. You have to do the same thing with the money. Become more
Mhm.
disciplined about learning about it, understanding the language. You do want to work with advisors that do not just talk about the lingo and the jargon, but can break it down for you. But there is a point where we just need to know, what does diversification mean? We do need to know, what is asset allocation? You just need to know these things. You need to know what is a Roth IRA and the differences, not to be the expert, but just to know it for yourself. And I just think that, finding somebody you can work with that you can trust, that's going to teach it to you and not be intimidated by that, like where you can actually ask those questions and not feel like, oh, am I dumb for asking this?
Mhm.
Because what I have seen is, when I've worked with people who are older, there was a point where they had to learn about it. They had an advisor. I talked to a lady, she said, I started investing in the 60s, Black woman. She's in her late 80s. She said, I started investing in the 60s. I was shown this particular mutual fund. And now she's speaking the language. She understands what she's talking about. And she knows she's not a financial planner, but she knows enough to understand what she's trying to do. So don't be intimidated to learn the language of money.
So good. And again, so you said don't be intimidated by learning to learn the language of money. But you also spoke to this concept of investing, and I'm calling it concept because so many people think it's scary. It's
Mhm.
wait. I'm this is my money, and you want me to potentially or put it in something and then potentially may or maybe not get it back, and if it's gone, then oh no, I'm good. And then again, we don't take action. So let's talk about it. I'm here to rip off the band-aids once again. My husband and I, we've been investing for a while individually, but then we're getting ready to do more now, and as I'm saying this, I'm sweating a little bit, I'll be on it, right? Because again, it's scary. It can be scary because as you are investing more, it's you're stretching yourself, but you're also setting yourself up for greater success or the potential of a greater return. And I want to be clear as I'm saying this, there's no guarantee. Don't take your life savings and go and throw that into anything. Like, do not do it. I'm telling you now. Don't do that and say, Margot told me to invest and risk it all. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I am not certified to have that conversation. So no, so definitely have to give that disclaimer. But I want us to talk about this because for some people, for a lot of people, it's scary. And investing, let me be specific, I apologize. It is investing is scary and they don't know where to start.
Mhm.
Let's have that conversation. We can camp out here for as long as we need to, because I feel
Yeah,
like it's really important for this conversation on building generational wealth.
definitely. To me, it's all about doing more of it and being comfortable around it. So I've worked with people who have started out not knowing anything about investing, um, in their 20s. And we do a risk tolerance. I like to have that conversation
Mhm.
around a risk tolerance. So I do a questionnaire, we have a conversation, and usually the scoring is anywhere from 0 to 100. And this particular person, and I have a lot of examples like this in her
Mhm.
20s.
Yeah.
She ended up, scoring in the 20s. And the 20s is a lower risk tolerance. And then I've had someone in their 80s score in the 70s. Okay.
Beautiful.
So, but you want to have, understand that I like to start you where you are. So we started at a very, very low risk. And then over time, they became comfortable. They were like, okay, I see how this is working. And she already told me that the money is going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to be flat at some point.
Mhm.
But the longer I leave my money in, that's where the probability of my money growing comes into play. But if you're looking at investing as a short term, I'm going to take my money out in 3 months, or I'm going to take it out in 3 years, then investing is not going to be appropriate for that particular person. So I'm really big on long term, setting the expectations, understanding that it will go down, but also reframing that to, oh, when it goes down, I might be able to buy and get more shares. Oh yeah, kind of like when I go and I see some makeup that I love and it's on sale. What do? I buy some more of it.
Yep.
Or I see a dress and it's on sale, I buy some more. So it's a mindset shift with investing. The probability has shown that the longer you invest, the higher the probability is that you actually will gain money, you will increase. So for those who are just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna just do this new, whatever game, whatever, I'm not gonna finish that, but I'm just gonna jump on that bandwagon because everybody else is jumping on it. And maybe tomorrow, I'll look at my account and it's down. Oh my gosh, I guess I'll sell it. So see, this is where a financial planner comes into play, because we do help you with those behaviors. There's this behavior of the herd mentality, the
Mhm.
news. If it leads, it bleeds. So, if it bleeds, it leads, basically. So if it's out there and it's bad news, oh my gosh, the market is tanking. And then now I'm fearful. Sometimes you just got to turn off the TV, go out for a walk, take a bath, and just let it go a much longer period of time. So start where you're at and begin to do consistent, be consistent. There's a beautiful term called dollar cost averaging. I'm just going to throw it out there again, back to the language of money. And it's a way for you to systematically invest. You pick a date. If you're working at a company and you're investing in your 401k, you're already doing dollar cost averaging. And so every time, you pick the 15th of the month and you put $100 in, and one day on the 15th, maybe March 15th, the market was down. So you bought more shares because it was down. But then on the 15th of May, the market was up. So you bought less shares. But over time, this is going to allow your accounts to accumulate and to grow. And it typically does better than inflation, which is usually around 3%, 3 to 5%. So that already takes away from your account. So if you're just throwing money in a savings account, that's like 0.01%. Maybe if we're getting aggressive, we're at 1%, maybe, 0.75. And now we have inflation, which subtracts out. So I'm going down that path, but there's a lot to all of this. And so it's really important to understand the beauty of investing. And I'll leave this with the rule of 72. This is a great way to get a framework for why you want to invest. So the rule of
Mhm.
72 is where you're taking 72 and you divide that by the interest rate. So if the interest rate or the rate of return is 6%, then you take 72, divide that by 6. The number that you get is 12. So with a 6% rate of return, the rule of 72 is telling us that every 12 years your money would double. So that's what that does. So if you have a 1% rate of return or a 1% interest rate, you take 72, divide that by 1. Every 72 years, your money will double. Yay! No. Not exciting, right? But that's the beauty of the difference between a savings account, a CD or a low interest account versus a investing account. But again, there's places for all of those, but yeah, so you want to really look at, you want to understand those concepts. Yeah.
Again, if you don't understand what she just said, call her.
There you go.
They can go, everybody can go on about their day. But truly, again, these are things that I had no clue about. Some of the things you said, I'm like, sure. What is that? But again, this is not my zone of genius. And this is why I mentioned the need to call for help when you need it. But you said several great things, and I want to speak to this because and go back to this point of establishing your relationship with your banker, asking the questions, asking them like, hey, I don't know this, so I need you to tell me everything that I don't know, and being bold to ask this, bold enough to ask this question. I had money when I was younger, and I didn't know what to do with it because my mother didn't necessarily have it, but she taught me how to generate money. And I'm like, okay, great. Whether it was starting out selling lemonade at the stand, whatever I was doing as a young child, I learned that, and I did it as a teen. I had, odd jobs when I was a teenager. I saved all my babysitting money, and I saved all the other money that I had, and I just kept growing it by doing other work. But I had to trade my time for that money. And then by the time I think I was maybe between 16 to 18, and I'm happy to share this because again, these are conversations that I have with my girlfriends now. But I was 16 to 18 with $80,000, and I had no clue what to do with it. Now the story changed because I didn't know what to do with it. My money started to go down as I became an adult, and I had rent and I had expenses, and I got a brand new car. Lord, that's a whole nother conversation. I brought a brand new car. And even though I had a 700, I think it was like 760, a credit score, again, I didn't need to buy a brand new car. I could have, but I didn't know these things. And then I think it was probably like 4 years ago, I had the worst experience. My credit was low. It really had no money coming in, and I was completely extended. And I'm happy to share this. Again, I talked about the importance of being vulnerable. I did not know what to do. And because I had built this brand or this image publicly, I'm like, oh my God, like how did I get in this mess? And I don't know what to do. And I had a financial representative, and I'm like, I just started dodging his calls because I didn't know how to even explain how I got into the situation, and I didn't have the money to keep paying him to get myself out of the situation. Like, it was bad. And, now being married, now have a family, the situation is completely different, right? Money's no longer looking funny in that, in that degree. And there's still more to learn. There's still more to grow. But I wanted to take the time to, put myself on that chopping block. I'm sure each of us can share our stories. And if we were in an with a live audience, who in here could resonate with that? I'm sure we would have dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds, depending on the size of the audience, of hands raised. And so, I love having these conversations. And I love providing the knowledge, but I'm always going to put myself on the chopping block if I have a story to share and say, hey, like, I had it, I didn't, and now we're growing it, and I know what I'm doing. Right. And so I wanted to share this, to jump in at that point and just share that short story before we continue. But I'll pause because I'm sure you ladies may have something to share or respond to based on what I said. So I'll pause for a second before we transition, if anything. If not, we're good. I think this is a big deal that we're here. And again, having this conversation when we need to, right when we need to. Because again, as I shared in my story, a lot of people, whether they had the money or didn't have the money, they just don't know what to do. And so that's why we're here. And so I want to share, because we did get this question from an audience member, is, I have the knowledge of general financial advice, but I never applied it. How do I get better at applying what I know?
See, for me, I believe that's where a financial planner comes into play. So, we're gonna help you apply it. So, I think it's excellent that you've taken the time to understand and get the knowledge. And if you're not able to take that and take some action behind it, then that's where you got to get another person to help you. So we're going to help you to be able to figure out, do you have enough in your retirement? Okay, we know that we need it, we know this, and we might even know the dollar amount, but are you really actually at the place where you're going to get there?
Mm,
um, do you say you wanted to, like, you take that, buy that second home, or whatever your goals are you actually doing that? Are you taking the action? And if you're not, then that's where that accountability, and having somebody work with you to be able to say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to break these steps down into bite-sized chunks so that you can start to make that happen. And to me, that is where that accountability and that extra pair of eyes comes into play.
Again, super quality response to that. And I think where a lot of people come, because again, I saw this as a question. I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna change the question a little bit. A lot of people, their background, we'll just talk about the gurus for now. A lot of the people know the Dave Ramseys, the Susie Ormans, the Robert Kiyosaki. That's what people know. They know of them. I probably have a couple copies of Robert on my desk. I feel like he's a little cutthroat. I like him a little bit, because like that's the type of assertiveness and discipline that I need in my life. But for you, Cher, I would love to get your perspective on, of these three, because that's common knowledge for most people. If they don't even know about this topic or this industry, and with its depth, how much depth there is, for you, from your perspective, which of these three would you say that you would recommend, if any? And
Yeah.
we're not, for the record, we're not coming from any of them. If you believe them or support them, we're not. I just, again, we're teaching quality information here, and so I want to make sure that the people are aware.
That's a great question. I'm not really at a place where I'm going to recommend anyone in particular. Over the last 3 or 4 months, I have sat down and done interviews with, about 50 or so people about what their financial struggles are. And all three of those people have come up throughout those interviews. And in addition to other folks,
Yeah,
was it Remy
absolutely.
Sethi and
Yep.
the Budgetnista? I think start where you're at, listen to people. If it resonates with you, if it's causing you to take action and to do some things and make some positive strides, start with them.
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of people be impacted positively, and I've heard a lot of opinions about all of them too. So
Yes.
I think that it's really a matter of, one of the things I learned was, chew the hay, spit the sticks. um
Mm,
and everybody is going to have different opinions, different methods on how they do stuff. But if you go through, you listen to these folks, and you hear what they're saying, and it resonates and is causing you to take action, I think that's the biggest thing. And one of the things too is they really appeal to mass audiences. So it's not going to be necessarily tailored to just you. So that's why it's important to really just look at, okay, how does this apply to my particular situation? And I believe that's also where the financial planner comes into play, because they're going to know more about you individually. But all of the folks, have really good information, and there might be also information that they might share that's controversial, but again, how does it resonate with you, and how is it causing you to take action towards a positive direction? That's the key to me.
How is it causing you to take action? Is it causing you to take action? But yes, how is it causing you to take action? Super, super powerful. So we have about 15 minutes left. This is a great part of the conversation where we just kind of give them a few more tangible action steps. We, recap on what we've discussed. We've covered so many topics here, and normally we just leave the replay, and that's 90 minutes of just impact. And so again, I have to, at this point in time, just thank you for being part of this conversation and really helping us get clear, both you and Stacy, for joining this conversation. I want us to go, as we kind of wrap up this conversation, to ask a few other questions, and both of you can chime in here. But I want us to go back to some basic conversation concepts a little bit, and then just wrap up on mindset. So one of the things that we've seen come in are, what should I include in my personal budget? We've seen the questions, how much should I save in my emergency fund? What are the best places to hold my short-term savings? We can go further, but to take some time to talk a little bit about that. And so just to recap those questions: personal budget, emergency fund, short-term savings. Let's take some time to talk about that. Whatever comes to your mind, I'd love for you both to share some insight around those areas.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, with the budget, I'm very a big proponent into, how we spend. So we've got money that, we have to spend, which is for utilities, fixed expenses like your utilities, your rent or mortgage. I'm a big proponent of list all that out, know what the income is that you're bringing in, and hopefully, because Margot, you talked about it, multiple streams of income. So whether you're single or married, I do believe we need to start building up our streams of income, so the income's coming into this account, and that would be considered your, for all your committed expenses. And then you can start to really budget out like how much you're going to spend on dining out and gifts and all those fun things. And I'm a big proponent of, if you realize, oh, you know what, after I've taken care of my committed expenses like my mortgage, my rent, my the car note, all those different things that I have to spend money on every month, that takes no emotion. Once I figure that out and say we were like, oh, I have $1,000 left, then the best thing to do is to break that out on a weekly basis and give yourself $250, because a lot of people will, if they give themselves a lump sum of money in a month, they dwindle it down to zero in 18 days on average. So break that out over the course of a week, almost like giving yourself an allowance every week. So that is something really big for me. And then the other thing that I would say, what was the other question, Margot? You said there was the emergency fund.
Yep. The emergency fund was the last part of that.
Yeah. So emergency fund is all your expenses, looking at what would happen if you, lost your job. How long could you survive on the savings that you have? And so, the typical rule of thumb is anywhere from 3 to 6 months. but depends on all your different income streams. So if you have like two income streams coming in, like you have money coming in from your speaking, money coming in from, your main job, or you sell jewelry, whatever that is, then you now can offset how much emergency fund you need. But usually it's 6 months, but a lot of folks, because of COVID, are like, I'm trying to get 9 months, I'm trying to get 12 months. So that is a big deal. I'm a big proponent of having that. And then what was the last question? I should have wrote those down.
No, you're good. I threw them at you on purpose.
Okay.
I wanted to see how well you can juggle. No, so we talked about the personal budget. We talked about the emergency fund, and then the last piece, which you actually did kind of touch on, was the short-term savings.
Yeah. So
It goes
like
into
what
the emergency
that
fund.
should be in. And Stacy will be able to touch on that a lot more too. But short-term savings, I'm a big proponent of not having it be subjected to a lot of risk. If you're under, that if you year or 2 years, I'm a big proponent of savings accounts and, bank accounts, CDs, those types of things that you can pull out, in a quick amount of time, and not have like a March 2020 where the market just tanked and now you're trying to pull out your short-term savings. We don't put short-term savings in the market, because of that reason. So you really want those low risk type investments or vehicles, which are savings accounts and CDs. So yes.
No, so good. Stacey, yeah, please jump in. This is a good part.
I agree with her with the short-term savings, and that's where we do ask. We do ask them, is this long-term? What is this for? And if it's just something like they're just saving, maybe a down payment on a home and they just need to park it someplace, and we'll ask, and it'll go into a savings account. Or if they need something in 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, it can go into a CD. It's just right now, the rates just aren't there. So we're going to do what's best for the client to see if it's a CD, or it might be someone who needs the discipline. So if it's someone who needs the discipline and they don't want to touch their money, it's going into a CD. And we'll tell them why, because because if it goes into a CD and you pull it out early, you're going to get penalized for that. So you would be penalized for taking your funds out, opposed to having it go into a savings account where you could just go into the bank, or you can link it to your debit card and you just go to the ATM and pull money out when you need to. So that's where we just get to know the client and ask them what the purpose is for. And if it's just to park it, probably a CD is the best option.
Yep, and that is what I did when I became an adult. I was like, no, I can buy whatever I want. Put it up, leave it. Don't let me touch it. Yeah.
I always say out of sight, out of mind. So out of sight, out of mind. And I'll tell people, because most of the time I do things where all my statements are paper statements. So especially if it's a CD or a savings account, or even my stuff that's in the market, out of sight, out of mind. It's there for a reason. I don't plan to touch it. So I'm not going to look at it. And unless I might glance at it every 6 months to see, but it's long-term for my things that are in the market. So I just let it do what it needs to do.
And that's it again. And I wish, sometimes we look back and say what I wish we would have done. Honestly, the conversation that we're having right now, I wish I would have had access to this information. I'm the type of person where I'm like, okay, wait, what was that? Or okay, let me look it up. But I have more questions. Where do I book a call? Because again, there's so much information to know, and we're only one person, right? And so I'm going to tell you right now, having had it, I'm the new money girl. I'm fine to say it, right? Having had it, losing it, and knowing I'm never going to lose it again. Something changes in you, right? And I think we mentioned this early in the beginning, the difference between living check to check, and there's this weight that is put on you when you're living check to check, and your money is looking funny and you don't know where it's coming, and you're obligated to stay at a job that you hate, that you loathe, just to put food on your kitchen table, or even worse, in the mouth of your babies. Again, this conversation, I feel like I started getting the pastoral roar, because I'm getting real passionate about this. Because again, in the beginning, when I had the money in the start, and I didn't know any better, I was just, well, I'm fine, I have it, so it'll be good. Not knowing this information, not knowing who to ask for help, or clarity, right? You can only get so much information from Google University. That is actually what led me into the situation and mounds of debt that I am, well, I'll pay it off later. People tell me use credit card to build my credit, I'm gonna just pay it off later. Are you though? Are really though, right? Finding myself overextended, upside down, in debt. And look, I think Stacey, we talked about this the last time. I was like, I figured that I could loan myself, or Margot could loan the company money, and then the company would pay it back, and then this and that, and okay, yeah. We're not going to get that conversation going with the FCC, maybe lurking around somewhere, right? Because again, you have to know how this stuff works. And, you know, people end up going into entrepreneurship not knowing. People, we don't even have to go to the entrepreneurship, conversation, but a lot of the people who are tuning in, they are entrepreneurs. And a lot of these conversations with the boot camp, they're for the entrepreneur. And so we had to take a step back and say, we got to go personal. Because if you don't know, I'm going to change this statement, because this is something that I teach my students and my clients. Your personal habits become your business principles. I'll say it again for the people in the back. Your personal habits become your business principles. And so if you're trying to run this business and you have this goal, I'm going to make $1 million, but you have no plan to get there. You don't know the different, you don't know how to make money. You don't know how to save money. You don't know where to put your money. You're not going to get there. And this is not me saying that you can't do it. It's that you won't do it because you don't understand the language of money. You don't know how to make your money work for you. Let's change that. You have at least 2 resources here. I can help you expose your gaps, but that's the furthest I can go with you. I'll send you to Cher, I'll send you to Stacey or Summer, but that's it. But we have to get to know this information. Stop being afraid. Stop making the excuses, because it's not only costing you, it's costing your loved ones, and it's costing the people that you are called to lead. We have to begin investing into ourselves. And unfortunately, that is almost our time. That is almost our time. That is almost our time. The last thing that I wanted to make sure that we touch on before we tell the people where they can find both of you, what is one thing that you can share around mindset, decision-making strategies, and how to effectively collaborate with others in order to build generational wealth? Loaded question. I'll say it again so you guys can marinate on that, so the audience can marinate on this too. What mindset shift, decision-making strategies, or how can we collaborate with others in order to build generational wealth? Take it away, ladies. I know it was loaded. I couldn't just let the last question be a simple one.
Yeah, right. That's a loaded one. That's a loaded one, but it's an excellent one. We need to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I believe everything starts with our mind and our mindset. And again, back to asking ourselves the question, how can I? How can I? So in that, how can I ... How can I help? How can I build wealth? How can I bring in more revenue in income streams? How can I? So I believe how can I, asking that question of ourselves will begin to help us to take the action necessary to find the folks that we need in our community to help us. How can I escape limiting beliefs about my life? How can I move into an abundance type mindset? What is it that I'm thinking every day that is
Hmm.
causing me to think that, you know, there isn't enough? You know, how can I? And I just believe that is, you know, what we need to begin to ask ourselves so that we can start to take the necessary action to build that wealth. And, you know, despite all the challenges that come our way, we're very resilient people. We can make it through. We've seen others. We're here today because of the resiliency of others, our ancestors. So that's why we're here today. So it's all inside of you. And it's just a matter of just taking the action.
So good.
Perfect.
Stacy.
The only
Yes.
thing I want to add to that is just, I'm not a parent, but parents sit down with your children and instill in that mindset that they can do it. It's not, I grew up where it was never, I was never told we couldn't afford it. I was told I didn't need it. And it was different because for me, it wasn't the fact that we couldn't afford it. And I was like, I had to ask, like, why can't I get this? But it's because we didn't need it. And that as an adult has helped me because there's things that I want, but I don't need it, so I don't buy it. And I think as parents, you really have to sit down with your children and you have to explain to them, you have to tell them, you know, this is why if you're going to use credit cards, this is what's behind the credit cards. This is the interest rates. This is what you're paying on. You know, show them, talk to them about investing. You know, let them know that they can have it too. The home ownership. You know, that it's okay to own a home. Not well, I don't want to own a home, so I don't have to cut the grass. You know, that's the big thing now that I see people when they get the homes from their parents or their grandparents, the first thing they do is sell it. It's like, no, you want to keep it because that's going to give something to pass on. And that's going to help with the generational wealth and to help us grow. So in 2053, we're not all broke. So that's my only thing is just parents, just take the time and talk to your children.
It is that time. For those of you, I'm not even going to say if you want to connect with her. If there's anything that you heard from this conversation and you're like, I need to know more, but I'm going to start at Google. Spare yourself the trouble and book a call with Shahara because this conversation needs to happen. We want to see you not just win, right? I know there's this winning movement. We don't just want to see you win. We want you to see you thrive. We want to see you setting yourself and your children up for success. We want to see dismantling of generational poverty, not just for your life, but the lives of your children, the lives of the people that your children and you are called to serve and lead and be around. And so this is an invitation and a challenge to raise your expectations, to begin to invest into yourself, to see the life that you desire. Not just for the fancy smancy houses, but to go beyond survival. I just posted onto the stream how you can get connected with Shahara, and it's LinkedIn, Instagram. You can sign up for the Money Decisions newsletter and receive a free ebook at yourstoryfinancial.com. But then there's also a book pre-sale that I wanted to make sure to mention. She's doing her campaign right now for her new book, first book, right? First book. Welcome to the Authors Club. It's great to have you with us. Her book is called In the Meantime, Own Your Financial Narrative. And just to make it full circle, that is why we titled it Owning Your Financial Narrative. It's based on her book. We want you to begin investing into yourself. So go ahead and click the link that's there, and you can go ahead and get your own copy. Right now it's pre-orders. Once the pre-orders are done, you'll get your book eventually, but nonetheless, invest into yourself If you're, I'm not ready to get that yet, great, get it for somebody else and just invest into you. I'm going to leave you with this. As you are on your journey to build financial wealth, ask for what you want and be prepared to get it. Until next time, let's continue making an impact. Blessings. Thanks everyone for joining. Be well.